In fact, I was involved in that storm, of course.
It was your fault then?
It was all my fault, really. And Bill Giles the night before said it was going to get breezy up the channel. Spot on there, Bill. It was a bit more than a breeze, of course. But I was involved in that storm from the Sunday lunchtime, talking about it on the Sunday forecast, right the way through to the morning of the storm. I came in at 7 in the morning on BBC Breakfast, and I left at 2 in the afternoon, having done 21 broadcasts, trying to explain something I didn't know a thing about.
Good that you're still explaining it here on Channel 5. At the time, were you using computers? Because they haven't been around that long in terms of forecasting.
No, there's been an update in the computer power, of course, roughly every decade, I suppose. If you go back to my early days, I started off with magnetic symbols up in the Midlands, and they would never stick on the screen. That was terrible, really. There was no versatility in a thing like that. The computer is absolutely necessary. It's always been necessary to improve the accuracy of forecasts. And obviously, over the years, over the decades, we've seen much more power. If you go back to 1990, for example, I think the computer power was about 400 million calculations per second, and now they're talking about 13 quadrillion calculations per second. It's impossible to understand that, but it saved a few pencils.
Of course. Even so, where does the onus lie? Does it still lie with the forecaster to interpret that data and then deliver it to the rest of us?
Well, the computer has made it extremely easy in a sense, because it's giving you an idea of what's going to be happening, not tomorrow. I mean, when I started, it was a 24-hour forecast. You couldn't go beyond that. It became 3 days in the first 10 or 15 years of my career. It's got much better than that. And now, of course, we're looking at seasons ahead. But one of the problems
is it? How reliable is it to look further ahead than, say, 5 days?
There's always going to be a problem with it. You know, Matt, no one could say to me, what's it going to be like in 4 weeks' time if I'm teeing off at Glen Eagles on the first tee at 9 o'clock on a Friday morning, 4 weeks on Friday? What's the weather going to be like? I wouldn't know, and this computer will not know yet. It's a step change. It's not an exponential improvement.
Well, exactly. I mean, just today, in parts of the country, it's been pretty balmy, almost an Indian summer.
Balmy weather.
London, 18 Celsius, Birmingham, 18. Woburn and Bedfordshire got up to 19.2.
I had a look at the charts before I came out. At 12 o'clock, the temperature in Glasgow was 10. In Newcastle, not that far away, really, it was 19. It just shows, well, and that's why it's so interesting, of course, for people like me.
And that's the other question, isn't it? Of course, it's chaotic, the weather.
Yeah.
Is it less predictable these days with global warming and climate change?
You could argue so. We seem to be getting more extreme weather, but you could also say that it's always been extreme. It's just that we get to know a lot more about these stories around Britain, around the world, much more quickly than we ever used to do. It's a different society to how it was 50 years ago. So, yes, it's still extreme. It is chaotic out there, and it's extremely difficult to get the forecast right. I think we're pretty good now at 3 or 4 days, but beyond that, it's still going to be a bit of a hard slog, really.